Mediterranean hotspot draws a line in the sand and tells tourists to put their clothes back on.
You know, speedos, bikinis with everything hanging out. You know, let's be frank, it's not that pleasant. You know, I wouldn't do it.
Coming up this week, the Balearic bikini battle. Why skimpy beachwear could land you with a big fine. I go on the prowl in Japan and find out why your cup of tea may well come with quite a big side order of cat.
I'm told their nails are clipped regularly, so it's unlikely you'll be scratched. But if you are unlucky, there's a first aid kit on hand.
And Simon's back with a new itinerary for South Africa and to help with a Turkish bureaucratic head scratcher.
Hello and welcome to the Travel Show, coming to you this week from Tokyo, where I'll be following one of the latest trends and booking a table for two with a cat. So stay tuned for more about the pet cafes springing up all over this most fad-following city.
But first, we're heading to Spain's Balearic Islands, a part of the world where many Europeans go to relax and let it all hang out. So much so that the authorities on one island are now trying to legally enforce a sartorial cover-up. Greg Mackenzie reports, fully dressed we hope, from Mallorca's capital Palma.
In recent months, some of the Mediterranean countries hit worse by the Eurozone crisis are seeing their resorts filling up once again. More than 15 million international arrivals landed in Greece last year, while Spain saw almost 60 million. But have these countries learned any lessons? Well, for the Spanish island of Mallorca, the answer is maybe. There, they're talking not only about recovery, but also redefining their product. In short, Palma is going up market. That's why there's been a huge investment in top-of-the-range hotels here, more than 20 built in the last 3 years, and there are many more planned. And along with wanting more high-end tourists, locals now have higher expectations of the way they want their visitors to behave. So less of this and more of this. And that's partly why they've introduced a Good Citizen Plan.
Authorities in Palma say the Good Citizen Plan and the subsequent changes to local laws came about at a request of residents, some of whom were so fed up with tourists coming off the beach into the old town inappropriately dressed.
The penalties which make up the Good Citizen Plan start at €50 for anyone not wearing a top or t-shirt away from beach areas, €50 for riding a bike on the pavement, and €200 if you're caught buying merchandise from illegal street traders. And it's not just places like Palma where local sensibilities are being offended by tourists. In May, authorities in Qatar brought in new rules for visitors to dress modestly in public and respect the Islamic country's values. Meanwhile, in New Jersey in America, it's the tourists who have the upper hand after laws were passed banning locals from wearing saggy jeans or pants on its broadwalks, following a number of complaints from visitors.
It tends to be people wandering off the beach and not being aware of the fact that they might cause offence, you know, by wearing inappropriate clothing, you know, speedos, bikinis with everything hanging out. You know, let's be frank, it's not that pleasant.
Local journalist Anna Nicholas has lived in Mallorca for more than 10 years and says she can see why the city council is following in the footsteps of other European cities like Barcelona, which introduced a similar plan last year.
I hope they won't slap fines immediately. Maybe give people a little bit of warning for the first few months of
this summer. Maybe next year bring it in and come in a bit heavy once people know what's going on. But I think, the idea is that tourists are welcome here. It's not an idea to just slap fines on people and they have a horrible holiday.
But for unwitting tourists, the laws could mean they find themselves on a more expensive holiday than they bargained for.
It was very awful to go through the city and be in contact with people. They don't wear shirts. It's not. It's a question of aesthetic.
The fine is just 50 euros, so people could learn from it. Because if you go in this area by the beach, for me it's fine if people just go in their swimming suit. It's not proper if you want to go to the downtown, for example, to the restaurant to have a drink or to some shops. That time for sure you should wear something.
While critics have suggested this is just a money-making venture, Palma City Council insists this is not true.
No, absolutely not. This is a matter to still being a relaxing city that we are. We are in a good position to be a new destination for the next 20 years.
And what happens if a tourist simply says, I have no money?
What happens if I go to Piccadilly Circus and I say to the police, I'm sorry, I don't have money? What happened? It's the same in London, it's the same in Berlin, it's the same in wherever. If I go to Rome and I say to the police, I don't have money, the police say, okay, come with me. And at the end, I pay. It's quite simple. So here is the same.
And the Vice Mayor is hopeful that other towns in Mallorca will soon follow suit and adopt their own good citizen plans. But for now, it's simple. If you've got it, don't flaunt it, at least not here in Palma, as it could cost you dearly.
Greg Mackenzie on Mallorca's efforts to bring back a bit of decorum.
And if you're planning a trip there, here's some travel show tips of things to think about before you go.
Well, the high season's still very much underway in the Balearic Islands, but if you're still planning to catch some time on the beach there, here are some things you might want to bear in mind. While you're likely to touch down in a noisy tourist hub, you could head to the northern coasts of Mallorca or Ibiza for an escape from the party crowds. There you will find quieter beaches and peaceful walks over cliffs and through forests. In Mallorca, take the vintage train from the town of Soler. This daily service has been running without interruption since 1912, offering superb views as it snakes its way to the heart of the island's mountainous northern region. And while you're there, why not head out on a hike? Walking and cycling on the Serra de Tramontana range will give you a completely different perspective on the island. Trails suitable for all levels and cut through olive groves and wineries. Menorca is known to be the quieter of the three main islands, but sporty types can still go kayaking around the deserted coves there. And if wildlife is more your thing, the dunes of Albufera de Grau National Park provide a chance to see the bird life up close. Finally, if you want to avoid the sun-seeking crowds altogether, the Balearics offer a calmer, albeit slightly cooler vibe in the winter months. High season runs from Easter to October, but many places stay open throughout the year. Now for your weekly roundup around the world of travel. We start this week in Venice, Italy, where a ban on cruise ships entering the city will come into effect by 2015. Locals and environmentalists have been pleading with the government to take action following claims the huge ships, nicknamed the skyscrapers of the sea, have been eroding the foundations of the city for years. It looks like Bethlehem is back on the itinerary for many people taking trips with tour operators to Israel and Palestine. But tourists are still being advised to be extra vigilant and take great care around the settlements and refugee camps. Those for whom celestial sightseeing is more their thing, the combination of a supermoon and Perseids meteor shower have given some incredible views around the world. People all over the Northern Hemisphere were looking to the stars to see the rare phenomenon. But don't worry if you missed it. Perseids will be stopping by again next year, and the supermoon will be back in September. And finally, the skies were also the spectacle at the International Bristol Balloon Festival, which took place last week. 500,000 people came to see over 100 balloons take to the skies, with pilots and visitors from across Europe and the United States.
Still to come on this week's travel show.
South Africa off the tourist trail and battling with the sometimes baffling website providing visas for Turkey.
Plus, I ignore all my own hygiene rules and share my lunch with Tokyo's animal population. So see you after the break.
The Travel Show, your essential guide wherever you're heading.
Welcome to the slice of the show that aims to make your travelling life easier. Let's start with Elena Karidas, who writes from the Greek capital Athens to say,
"My husband and I are going to Johannesburg for a few months on assignment. We'll be living in the suburb of Rosebank and will commute regularly to Pretoria. What advice can you give and what sort of attractions do you suggest we visit?"
What a great opportunity to experience South Africa's biggest city and the fine administrative capital, Pretoria. They're not on the tourism mainstream, but both are fun and fascinating cities. First, the business of how to travel between the two. The new GAL train is swift, safe and comfortable, taking only 40 minutes between the station in Rosebank and Pretoria. Over the course of a few months, you'll be able to explore the history of the anti-apartheid movement and visit the home of the late Nelson Mandela in the township of Soweto. Also on the outskirts of Johannesburg, Gold Reef City is one of my favourite theme parks anywhere in the world, on the site of a former gold mine. And Pretoria is full of monuments and museums to the nation's history. From Brazil, Tanya Maud says,
"I'm flying to Orly Airport in Paris and I want to book a transfer to the centre of the city. I found a website that promises reliable and inexpensive transfers by taxi. Can I trust it?"
Orly Airport in Paris was put in the shade 40 years ago when Charles de Gaulle opened as the main hub for the French capital, but it's still an excellent airport and significantly closer to the centre of Paris, so my preferred choice. Personally, I'd not book a transfer service that I found online on the grounds that I can't be 100% sure about cost and indeed security. There are two good alternatives. The Air France bus link, which has been running for decades between Orly to Montparnasse railway station, Les Invalides, practically at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, and the Arc de Triomphe. Alternatively, take the shuttle bus with navette to RER Line C for the express trains through the heart of Paris. Finally, we tackled the subject of tourist visas for Turkey earlier this year, but from our electronic mailbag here, it's clear that there's still plenty of confusion around. In April, Turkey brought in electronic visas, which tourists are supposed to obtain in advance. The government has said since that it's possible to obtain them on arrival, but my advice is still to get one ahead, just in case the airline you're on kicks up a fuss. Make sure you go to the right website, evisa.gov.tr, rather than any of the sites that have been set up to extract extra fees, and be prepared for a bit of a bureaucratic puzzle. Graham Spavin from York said he tried to follow my advice ahead of a trip to the lovely resort of Dalian this summer, but then got in touch about a problem with the online application.
There's no option for Turkey, only Turkmenistan, Turks and Caicos Islands, etc. Please advise.
Graham, it took me a while to work out what had been going on, but eventually I figured out where the problem lay. It's the very first menu on the first application screen when you're asked country, region. Understandably, I think you tried Turkey to show your destination country, but in fact it's asking for the nationality of your travel documents, in your case, United Kingdom. After that, the process should go smoothly. Well, that's all for now, but if your travelling process isn't as smooth as it should be, just email thetravelshow@bbc.com or tweet @BBC Travel Show and I'll do my best to help you. From me, Simon Calder, bye for now and see you next time.
Right, we're off to Tokyo next, where the cafes and restaurants are feeling increasingly crowded these days. But it's not just the city's human residents who are making my hunt for a table more problematic. I've been touring the eateries where animals are not just on the menu, they're also sitting at your table. Tucked away in an unassuming building in a suburb in West Tokyo is a cafe with a difference. 24 cats leisurely lounging on sofas and chairs in this tiny establishment are the main attraction. It's one of hundreds of neko or cat cafes popping up across the country.
Now, to some of us, this might seem like a strange concept, paying as much as $10 an hour to hang out with a bunch of cats. And you might expect the clientele to be the batty old lady types. But that's certainly not the case here.
Pussycat, pussycat, I've got flowers and lots.
It's become a popular place to visit if you're a tourist.
So go and powder your cute little pussycat.
I've been to another cat cafe in Tokyo actually a few years ago. I can't remember where it was. I think it's a great idea. This is difficult. Maybe here people have very small houses, don't have a garden, but many people like a cat. And here you can enjoy time with a cat.
What's new, pussycat?
But also if you're a young single Japanese woman.
I like cats. My dream is to become animal doctor, so I like cats and come here.
Cat cafes have become quite big on the dating scene here.
A lot of single women come here as well as dating couples, but lately we see a lot of men here, both young and old, come in here alone to spend time with the cats.
So the cats here are friendly enough and they're certainly well looked after. I'm told their nails are clipped regularly, so it's unlikely you'll be scratched. But if you are unlucky, there's a first aid kit on hand.
There's a wall of fame at the entrance so you can find your favourite feline, and of course the obligatory kitty trinkets. Once I'd brushed all that cat fur off my clothes, it was time for a bit of lunch. But this too is no ordinary eatery. 5 birds of prey are just a few steps away, watching me like a hawk. In fact, there are 3 hawks, 1 falcon and an owl. Falconry has been a part of Japanese culture for centuries. Hundreds of years ago, shogun warlords hunted with falcons in this very neighbourhood. Dedicated customers can even buy a baby bird.
Basically, I like snakes and lizards and all those sort of things, so it's interesting to go somewhere where I can interact with the animals. And I started to get interested in owning a falcon, and that's why I regularly come here.
But the owner warns that these birds live a long life, and buying a baby chick is a serious commitment.
Okay, now I must admit I'm actually quite terrified of big birds like this. And if one of these came flapping about my head, I think I'd scream the house down. But fortunately, they're kept in this enclosure here so customers can enjoy their meal and just admire.
At weekends, there are queues around the block to get a close-up glimpse of these majestic feathered friends, because it's an exotic and sometimes fierce alternative to the usual cuddly pet cafes around. For me, though, I think I'll stick to the tamer variety, like this rabbit cafe in trendy Harajuku.
The visitors enjoy giving them snacks. Many of them don't own their own rabbits. They come here out of curiosity, and the animals love it.
It's billed as a healing space for stressed out locals. Though I'd forgotten how much bunnies hop around and how much mess they can leave behind.
So I've never actually held a rabbit before. But Taisa here is very fluffy and very friendly. Usually only one rabbit is allowed out at a time because sometimes they might fight or worse still, mate.
Japan's lax animal regulations have allowed cafes like this to flourish around the country. But Tokyo has begun to crack down on public displays of creatures. An animal protection law was revised recently to enforce curfews on cat cafes that operated around the clock. But it seems the restrictions hasn't deterred the customers.
The animal cafes springing up all over Tokyo. Well, why not let us know if they've hit your neighbourhood yet by dropping us an email. The address is on the screen now, as well as details of our Facebook and Twitter feeds. Well, that's it for this week. Coming up next week.
There's a natural mystic flowing through the air.
Addie's in Jamaica taking full advantage of the end of a recent ban on jet skis.
It is a lot of fun. I mean, the real temptation, because you've got so much power, is that you want to accelerate off, but I think that's probably not the right thing to do, but I could see myself enjoying this a lot.
The ban was imposed following a number of fatal accidents. Now new regulations have been put in place, which caused some operators to claim sky-high insurance premiums, are pricing them out of the business altogether.
Well, I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, from me, Carmen Roberts, and the rest of the Travel Show team here in Tokyo, it's goodbye.